it's your old pal Keith from wavetables.lol, and I'm adjusting my camera. That's wavetables.lol. And earlier this year, I created a very, very large collection of single cycle waveforms and wavetables for modern synths like the Korg Modwave, Modwave Native, Serum, Vital, and anything else that can import 32-bit wave format wavetables. And actually, I could support other things if you're interested in them, so just let me know. And am very excited because I've been experimenting with new ways to create waveforms, not just based on mathematics like I did in my first one. Well, I guess they're still based on mathematics, but using new techniques to create waveforms and wavetables. And what I've done is I've created another tens of thousands, like 45,000-ish plus, new wavetables, like the one you're hearing right now, that are generated via AI. So I've created many different models, but these are variational autoencoders. The models are variational autoencoders that are trained on a superset of my KRC Mathwaves collection. And I actually, after much trial and error and learning a lot of new stuff about machine learning, was able to get high fidelity single cycle waveforms and wavetables out of a machine learning system. This is super exciting. Now, of course, an AI helped me with that. And an AI did, in fact, help me quite a lot as I was developing the original KRC Mathwaves collection. Because our friend ChatGPT, meaning GPT-4, GPT-4 Turbo now, knows a lot about machine learning. And I was pretty much a noob with machine learning. And, I was pretty much a noob to Python. I had done some various experiments, like when when OpenAI debuted their jukebox model. I spent a lot of time playing around with that and, mashing up songs and creating new things in Colab notebooks. Colab is a Google environment where you can run stuff on GPUs. And so I kind of started becoming familiar with Python when that debuted. I'm mostly a JavaScript guy, but my Python was pretty bad. But then when I started on the mathematical waveforms project, the KRC Mathwaves collection, basically ChatGPT, taught me all the Python I needed to know. And the fact that it could run Python scripts like in its environment was like, iteratively was like super nice. So a lot of that generation was actually done in GPT, and some of it was done on my local machine, and some of it was done in Colab. But all of the new machine learning stuff was done in Colab. Anyway, talkie. I have so much to talk about. We're 3 minutes in. Okay, Keith, get to the point. So what I wanted to tell you is that I have two versions. I have a free version of my Wavetables collection, and then I have a paid version. The paid version is actually on special right now. You can save $10 and get it for just $19. It'll get you 80,000 Wavetables, okay, for your Modwave or Serum or whatever it is that you use. I'm really partial to Korg. I'm really partial to Modwave. It's my wavetable synth of choice, and so that's what I'm demoing in here now. I also have a hardware Modwave, and my original collection, you can load the whole thing into your hardware Modwave. Now we're getting into territory where there's a vast number of wavetables, and some of them are very big. Many of them are 64 frames per wavetable, and so they take up quite a bit of space, and I don't know how many of those you can get into a hardware Modwave at the same time. So we're a little bit in soft synth territory, but that's okay, because like the soft synths, they sound as good as hardware, right? Because hardware is basically just running a program. Anyway, I will show some examples of what these things sound like and what's in the collection. But anyway, I have added like tens of thousands of new wavetables to my collection. And then in my free collection, there'll be links in the description. I've added another 128 of these Variational Autoencoder VAE Wavetables. And they have a lot of the same characteristics as my original collection because, of course, they're trained on it. Go up an octave or two here. But you'll see there are actually some new, if you're familiar with the existing collection, there's some new novel waveforms that are being generated in here, and this is due to the successful training of these models. They've just learned how to make a lot of new things. Maybe I'll get out of big head mode pretty soon. But there are literally many different versions in the full collection. And so when you import these, you'll see all these new collections. Like originally we had the like KRC Math, right, collection, which is all these different waveforms that I made with different mathematical techniques. And then a volume 2 that had some additional waveform creation ideas in it. And then there are a bunch of, wavetables that are created from those original waveforms in creative ways. So like where I take 2 waveforms at random and it just morphs between them, take a random selection of 64, 4, 8, or 16 waveforms and put them into a wavetable. My RAME technique, which the random adaptive interpolated magnitude, which is like a different approach to how you would mix waveforms together. Anyway, and that created this giant collection. But now there are the VAE wavetables. So VAE means Variational Autoencoder, and you'll find them in here. So there are many different versions. For example, VAE Bez 107 means that this is a collection of VAE-generated wavetables with the version 107 of my model. And these ones are constructed with a Bezier curve through the latent space that's created by the model. And we're just sampling evenly spaced points, 64 of them, along that path. So what we're talking about is an n-dimensional hypercurve. So in this particular model, as you can see here, the way they're labeled, and it sucks that like Modwave kind of cuts off the names of things. Like these all look the same, but they do have different file names in the original waveform, and inside of Modwave, they are uniquely named and they have unique IDs. But you can't really tell the difference just from the name of the wavetable, unfortunately. But you can see them when you are, zipping through them. Ooh, this looks interesting. When you're zipping through them in your hardware or software Modwave or in Serum, you'll see these, you'll see a nice waveform display, right? Okay, so there's so much to talk about. See, I keep like kind of losing track. So we're talking about the different types of wavetables. So the number in the names of these collections, and for the Serum and, the wave versions, the versions you would use, the Serum and Vital or Phase Plant or whatever, they're organized into folders. And so you'll find a folder that says like, VAE 107, and then inside it, there'll be the 8 Bez folder. And those are these 8-dimensional Bezier curves, or 8-point Bezier curves. These are pretty interesting waveforms because we're actually, swooping through different parts of the latent space. And so we're sort of visiting different neighborhoods. Some of them, feel like they have pretty simple transitions. Like that one, almost seems like it's just 2 waveforms, but there's others that are more complex. And you can actually kind of see as we travel through the space, move through the wavetable, you can kind of see the different types of waveforms that are being generated. This one looks rad. Like at the end there, that's very much that's a very, rich waveform that kind of has properties of a square wave and a sawtooth wave, which is pretty cool. I don't have models yet that generate like real clean. I haven't seen it spit out like a literal sawtooth wave yet. The latent space is, a little more creative than that, I guess you would say. But I continue to work on that and work on more advanced models. So 107, the 107 version was one of the first versions of my model that started spitting out high fidelity waveforms. And as we can, that was a 110. Let's go back into here. I was in my librarian. Anyway, what I just said about Bez was correct. Okay, so let's see. I hate that it gets little tiny here. The collections is tiny when you're in the edit menu, but whatever. So let's look at Vabez 107. We'll just grab one of these at random. There are 2048 here, maybe a few more than that. There's a great variety of stuff in here, and a lot of these are pretty high energy. Like they have the training data set, has some of, a lot of my more complex waveforms, like, the base 2 and base 3 polygonal waveforms. They have a lot of zero crossings. And so it learns that like that's a thing that should be in the wavetables. But there are other types of waveforms as well. All right. So you've got a whole metric S ton of those. So those are the Bezier waveforms, and then there's different version numbers. So there's 107, there's version 108. 108 has 26 dimensions, a batch size of 365. That's what these cryptic numbers mean over here. And those are just different hyperparameters that I use to train my model. That's a cool one. They're all cool, by the way. There's one that's very glassy, buzzy, like so many of the waveforms in my original collection. All right, so you've got version 108. Like each of the different versions, none is really superior to the other. They're all just kind of different in the things that they learned. But the wavetable construction techniques are consistent across them for the most part. All right, so we could look at, thank you, computer. So there's 108, then there's version 110. Now with version 110, I started doing some new training things because I wanted to maybe try to get the model to do stuff that doesn't have so many zero crossings in it, and more traditional type of subtractive synthesis waveforms. Where they're not really crazy and high frequency, but there's a little more variety. And so this is when I started to get successful with that. So you can see in the 110 versions, let's unsweep that. So you've got kind of a, turn the resonance down. So this it sounds like a sawtooth wave with a lot of resonance in it. We move through some stuff that's kind of formanty. That's nice, that transition. And then we kind of settle on something that's just like a modified sine wave. And of course, like I pointed out in my original video, like don't forget that in Modwave and perhaps in other wavetable sense, you can smoothly morph between two different wavetables, not just waveforms, right? The whole wavetable using the wavetable AB mode. So we've got, let's go up an octave here. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do there. And you can not sweep the wavetable, but you could specifically pick two different waveforms in the A and the B slot, and then you could smoothly morph between them if there's not a wavetable that does exactly what you want. So that's a really cool feature, and one of the things I really like about Modwave. Okay, so we talked about the curves. Let's go back to wavetable A. Let's see, what are some of the other wavetable creation techniques we had? So after curve, we've got linear. So these are, in fact, just linear morphs. Let's select 112 here. These are picking a start and end point in the latent space and then doing a straight line, a straight line in multiple dimensions between the start and the end, and again generating 64 frames for the wavetable. Now, interestingly, most of my wavetable models, actually all of them really, they learn the waves like pretty well, and they learn to make a very smooth latent space. And so these 64 frame wavetables, they actually sound pretty much like if you just loaded the start and the end point into a wavetable synthesizer and morph between them. They do have some peculiarities. The model learns not exactly a linear morph, which I find very interesting. But for all intents and purposes, it's like a linear morph between the different waveforms. It is amazing that you can pick any two points inside this massive multidimensional space, and somehow the dimensions line up so that it sounds like a wavetable synth. It's pretty wild. And, in the future, I'm sure that people will use technologies like this, like it actually, instead of traditional wavetable synthesis. We're very close to being able to do that. Here's what they sound like. Shut up, Keith. So these are simpler, right, in terms of the kind of the wavetable construction, because they're just kind of going between two different points. Kind of a cool format thing going on in that one. See that 112 is not like, that model's not super busy. Is 15 a little busier? No, I think 15 maybe is like the... might be the tamest one. I'm not sure. Ooh. Now sometimes, in a natural instrument, right? We don't actually find this in nature where the sound of something moves from like a lower number of harmonics to a higher number of harmonics. Like, so that's one of the cool things about wavetables is like things can be backward. But don't forget that in all your different wavetable synths, and like in Modwave here, you can do things like reverse the wavetable. And so that's very interesting, right? We can totally turn off the cutoff. And so you see this sound decays from in a natural way from a higher number of harmonics to a lower number of harmonics. Cool. Lots of neat things you can do here. Let's turn off reverse. All right. Enough playing around with that. Those are the linear wavetables. All right. Let's go to 19. Whoa. I heard you like glassy wavetables, so I made like thousands of glassy wavetables for you. All right. So, what's next? All right. So we've also got the Mlin wavetables. So the Mlin means multilinear. And so with the multilinear wavetables, let's grab our friend 108 here. With the multilinear wavetables, what I do is we pick 5 points in the latent space. And if you think about it, if you have 5 points on a graph, that is going to define 4 different paths between these different points, and then we linearly interpolate along each of those 4 paths. All right, so you get like 16 from point 1 to 2, 16 from 2 to 3, 16 from 3 to 4, and 16 from 4 to 5, for a total of 64 frames. And so these have a lot more variation than like the Bez wavetables too, because the Bez wavetables, they're kind of these smooth swooping curves. These are more angular, different points randomly selected within the latent space. So let's just see what they are. Whoa. Let's turn off our velocity envelope and let's just let our os envelope just go through the whole wavetable. So you can clearly hear that we're visiting lots of different neighborhoods, right? These are different waves. So you're going to find lots of like interesting, morph points between these, right? So you could... or just go up here. I mean, it's pretty wild what it comes up with. All right, so let's go back, sweeping our whole wavetable. So these have their own flavor. And, you would do different things with these than you do with some of the other types of wavetables. So that's the multilinear, Mlin. Whoa, that's really cool. There's almost a pitch thing that happens there. All right. Nifty. Okay, so then there's other types too. So those are the Mlin wavetables. Now, the other thing I did is I did create, for some versions, some reduced versions of the Mlin waveform. So the Mlin HR, I can't remember why did I call them H? I think it's because they're like a high number of harmonics or something. I don't know. I don't think it's really that it. But these are just the 5 points. So if we turn our crossfade width down in Modwave, we can see the 5 specific waveforms. So this one, this one. Hey, stop that. This one, this one, this one, that one, and this one. Right, and so if we were to sweep those without the crossfade width being on, so these having only like 5 frames in them, they're a lot smaller in size, and so you could probably get all of these into a hardware Modwave without issues. But again, I haven't really tested that much yet. All right, so that's what the multi-lin high reduced waveforms are. And then there's also multi-lin high with an F, and that means it's the full version, which they're actually the exact same points. Of course, you can't really see the file names in full, but they match up with the reduced versions. So one has 64 frames, the other has just 5 frames in it. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's that creation technique. Now, there's a really cool, very different method of creating wavetables that I came up with, and it's implemented in some of the collections, and it's called Orbit. So these Orbit wavetables, let's look at VAE Orbit 107. These are essentially circular. You can't really see it with that one. Now, these kind of start and end in the same, a very similar waveform. And so what you can do is, instead of like sweeping them this way with an envelope, let's go and we're going to set our position to 50%. And then we're going to grab, let's like grab any old LFO, and then we'll modulate the position with a, let's see, what was that? OS1? We're going to modulate it with a ramp. So like saw up. And if we modulate the wavetable position with a saw up by 50% here, the formula here would be slightly different in other wavetable sense. Well, look at that. Now we're traversing the waveform, and when you listen to it, there's almost this like, like the barber pole waveform effect. So they change, but they always kind of arrive back at the same place. So I think that's a super interesting effect. It's not insanely useful, but you could probably think of creative ways to use this. And of course, you don't have to modulate them like that way. We could pick a sine wave and we go back and forth between them, right? But these are just kind of cool because they're nice, subtle little transitions across the waveform, but they're contiguous. And I'll talk about how I made these in a second. You could make transporter sound effects or whatever with that, right? So the way that these are constructed is, again, we sample a random point in the latent space and then actually compute a circle around that at some certain radius. Now, circles are two-dimensional geometric constructs, right? So like, a circle only exists in 2 dimensions. Now, I suppose there are hypercircles, but I don't actually know how to generically orient a circle in multidimensional space. So what we do is, after we pick that point, we also just pick 2 random dimensions. So like in this wavetable, we've got how many dimensions? 24. So there's 24 dimensions. What we do is we randomly pick 1 dimension, randomly pick another dimension, and we hold those constant, and then that's what the circle goes around. So what we get, depending on the radius, is like these slightly different versions of the waveform that arrive back, at the original position. So it's pretty cool. So that's why they're called orbit, because they're circular wavetables. And so there's a bunch of these in here. Let's look at how the orbits are in 119. Now, there aren't orbit wavetables for everything. So like there's not an orbit set for 15, for example. Like whatever. It's just the way I was feeling. Let's change this back to a ramp. Now, not every one of these is going to have a whole lot of variation across it. Especially, it's really hard to understand which dimensions are going to really contribute to differences. But again, experimentation is the name of the game here. And again, the 119, that's pretty cool. Anyway, okay, so let's see. Are we out of different types? Yeah. Oh, there's one set. Okay, randomness is a part of all of these, but for set 107, I did create a bunch of wavetables that are purely random points without interpolation, and I believe there's 8 waveforms apiece here. Can we hear them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, there's 8. So, if we turn crossover width down, we're just hearing those. These are good candidates for uploading to your hardware Modwave as well. Now, we're doing that same, that kind of ramp sweep, right? And so, of course, the waveforms don't start and end in similar positions. So these aren't really for that, right? So we'd just take that off there. These are for doing things like, kind of a quick sweep through the wavetable. And in a lot of my own programming, I like these patches that are very organic and they sound like, impossible acoustic instruments. So I do a lot of those like quick sweeps between like two dissimilar waveforms in a wavetable. But other people have different approaches, like Coolwav, who makes all these like pretty cool patch collections, did a free set of patches for Vital using the free collection of KRC Mathwaves, and they're really cool. I'll put a link in the description. You should check those out. Okay, 41 minutes. I think we've gone on long enough. That's a quick tour through my Variational Autoencoder waveforms. And you can find them at wavetables.lol. $29 for the whole collection. It's currently on Cyber Week sale. You can get it for $19. Go get the free version, even if you're not interested in paying me. But I think you should, because I've provided a lot of value here, right? This started with like 36,000 wavetables, grew to like 46,000, and now there's 80,000 wavetables. And I continue to innovate and make like new, interesting things. So, I'm on an AI tip right now, but there's a whole bunch of of mathematical techniques I haven't gotten to yet. Like I'm working on a set of waveforms and wavetables that are inspired by Casio phase distortion synthesis, because that was my first synthesizer back in the old 80s. And so I love those sounds, and those are kind of interesting. So I'm just going to keep adding stuff to this collection. So I'm going to pause right here, and I'll probably split this into a second video, but maybe I'll talk a little bit about how my VAE works, because there's some interesting stuff in there. Like, I'll tell that story a little bit more. Hey, happy wavetabling, and have a great day. Check all this stuff out at wavetables.lol. If you look at the posts section there, not just the products, but look at the posts, I wrote a pretty long post about like what the different wavetables are, what the different versions are like, and kind of how I created these. So anyway, bye-bye. Love you. Take it easy. Have fun. Make some music. See you later.